In this video, I'm going to show you a different way of putting your Boro and Sashiko onto your jeans by opening the side seam. These jeans have some nasty pulls from my cat's claws. You know, they get on your knee and they knead, you know how they do that. It looks a mess and I want to fix it. So this seam on your jeans, you can see has some top stitching. So you can't use that seam. You can't put the top stitching back on, and so that means that your repair will show. Do you see the difference with this outside seam? It has no top stitching. So this would be the one to use. To be clear, you don't have to do this, open up your jeans. And some of my other videos show Boro and Sashiko repairs where I don't do it this way. I would say you really need a sewing machine for this. It's not impossible by hand, but really I wouldn't do it. To begin, turn your jeans inside out. The thread is that orange colour so it stands out clearly, and you can see there's the actual machine row and the zigzag that stops the fraying. I use this unpicking tool to begin taking out the stitches. I made this video because of a comment I received asking if I did it this way, basically. And so I really enjoy reading your comments. And so this idea comes directly from that lady who responded, which is great. So if you want to do this, I'm showing you how. I don't usually, but it's your choice. There may be an occasion where this is necessary. The length you unpick is really judgment. It's how much you think when you open it out you can lay flat and work on. I've unpicked, can you see that section of jeans? I can probably tell you how much I've actually unpicked there. About 15 inches. And the reason I did a little more was because when I tried to open it up, there wasn't really that much access. So you can see this seems entirely open, and it doesn't open flat, but that is enough that when I pin my work on that side there, when I open it up, I'll be able to get that under the sewing machine, and I've got enough room to maneuver that around and sew. So I'll get my fabric out and put some little pieces on here to cover up some of these thread pulls and make them look a bit more respectable. Really old, these jeans, actually. I've had this side seam open in the past before because these had really wide legs and I actually narrowed the legs. So part of the way down wasn't in this thread, it was just a navy blue. So I just had to take my own old stitching out. I'm going to use these pieces of shibori dyed fabric and cover those threads. Not sure how I'm going to lay them, but I'm going to use these three. I'm just going to fuse some heat and bond onto the back of my fabrics. Sorry, almost impossible to record anything without the dogs barking at some point. I'm just putting some parchment paper over here so everything doesn't get all stuck up. And just fusing in place. And whatever fusible webbing you use, just follow the manufacturer's directions. They're a bit different, from one to another. And I'm just going to cut these apart. And I decided to subcut these into strips, and I'm just going to lay them across the worst areas of thread pull on my jeans. I'm fusing those onto the jeans. And this is the part the jeans need to be open so that you can do the zigzag stitch and hold these in place. And I'm just going to sew around the edge of each piece using the zigzag stitch. And all the time I'm sewing though, I need to check that some of the jeans from the other side hasn't wandered underneath so that I don't sew two layers together. I've chosen this template or stencil and a heat erasable pen. My pieces are all sewed on there, and again it will be easier to do this with this seam of this leg open, laying it as flat as possible. This template has each stitch marked. I like that. In this case though, these stitches are a little bit larger than what I usually like to do. Can you see that? Not sure if it shows very well. You'll be able to tell better when I begin stitching. I'm just checking that the pattern all shows up on there, which it does. You have to watch out a little bit sometimes on the lighter material, but in this case it's all going to be okay. So I just need to put the stencil back on and do a little bit more over towards the centre leg. It wasn't quite big enough to cover the whole area, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. That's ready for the Sashiko. This is a little bit larger scale design, and that's what I wanted on this particular project. If you wanted to scale it down, this would be a pretty easy design to draw. Having this open side seam also makes it a lot easier for doing the Sashiko stitching. Sometimes it's a little problematic trying to work with your hand, you know, up the inside of the jeans leg. I'm starting with a knot because obviously the inside won't show. think I would call this more a big stitch Sashiko. These stitches, as I say, I prefer to do smaller stitches than this, but that's what fits this pattern, and I'm just going to stick with the pattern. I think the results will look good. I'm just more comfortable doing the smaller size stitches. To me, it seems that they're easier to keep even. Keep watching and I'll complete this Sashiko, and then I'll show you how you put the jeans leg back together again. Still working on the Sashiko on these jeans. It's going very well. This larger size pattern, it takes a lot less time than some of the smaller stitch ones, so there's a big advantage there. Sashiko's completed. I like the way that looks. And now we're going to put this side seam together. For this, I'm turning the leg inside out again. I'm going to pin this leg together. I'm carefully matching the edges. I'm putting my first pin in the centre of the unpicked seam. This denim is a little bit stretchy, so I want to make sure that the two edges are even. You'll see there's a lot of fraying on there as well. I have a lot of pins in there. Do you see that? To make sure it all lines up well. I want to do my machining here on exactly that same line where I took the stitches out, and you can see that. And this is just a straight stitch first. So all the way along to just past where the old stitching is still in there. And now I've switched machines and I'm doing a zigzag so that the side seam won't fray. And I just used navy blue thread for this, even though that's not the original colour that was on there. The seam's finished. I'm going to take it to my ironing board and just give it a press. And I just made a last minute decision to add a couple of the little flower parts to the two pointed diamonds there at the top. I just didn't like that look. So I've just used the template and marked those on. And now of course I do have to put my hand down the leg to sew them, but that's okay. So they're all done. So you can see the seam looks just as it did. Watch this for more Sashiko on jeans.